Hello everyone. So proud moment for us. 25 years of Pakistan Advertisers Society, PAS as we call it. Today with me, there are people who represent different era and perhaps milestones. And let's talk to them. What was the biggest challenge at that time when you formed the society?
There are a couple of challenges actually. I wouldn't say biggest. One was to get the Pakistan Advertising Association, the PAA, to be mentally in sync with PAS, because they saw this conflicting as well, right? And there were certain areas where there was a conflict. So that needed to be managed, and thank God, being an advertiser, there was a certain amount of influence one had with the agencies as well. So, a few major agencies. So that worked out. That was one challenge. The second was to be able to get people in the mindset of being willing to face plagiarism. The first complaint that we had for the Plagiarism Society was good old Unilever and Procter & Gamble.
Yes.
They were big boys. And big boys, United Nations, they say that when the fight is between two big countries, United Nations disappears. But PAS didn't disappear. That was because the mindset had been created. Ian Saxter was the chairman at that time, and Philippe Bouet was in the Procter & Gamble. So they reflected mature minds, but those had to be managed. And then there were other things like raising funds and so on and so forth.
Rizwan, when you entered, I think the plethora of channels that we had, Indian channels and other. So what were the challenges that you faced when you were reviving the society?
If I remember the number correctly, 2007 advertising level was 16 billion rupees. Which I remember writing in some notes that this is a 30% unprecedented jump over last year.
Yeah.
So there was suddenly all this extra fund being put in for advertising by companies. The very first and biggest challenge that I faced was generating interest and enthusiasm within the PAS community, within the members. As we were discussing that after a few years of its formation, interest had died down. And members were saying, why PAS? We give in a fee every year. What do you do for us? Why do we need to do this? The first thing we did was go out, hire a professional person to act as secretary of the association with full-time dedication, working 10 hours a day to make that change. Next, we relaunched PAS in totality. When we recreated the brand, we wrote down the core of ethics. We approached all the advertising companies, talked to them personally of what our vision was and how we wanted to move ahead to get in their interest. So that change in the philosophy of PAS at that point of time, and the conviction that we can keep making these changes, created the interest. Once we got everyone on board, then it was easier moving together. The question came, what is PAS doing for us? I think in just 1 year, there were a few things that we did. We got membership of the World Advertising Federation. That opened up a huge database for us and our members of the society. Database of advertising, database of codes, principles, what can be done, where it can be done. So that was the first very highly informative step that the society took. We started talking to the outdoor advertising. In that time it started developing very fast. So we actually started, PAS worked with the government to formulate the beginning of a strategy on outdoor advertising. What can be done, what cannot be done.
And
then, of course, the biggest thing that we did was, because there was hardly any level of accuracy in the advertising viewership measurements that we were doing through the diary system. Taran Saab has started work on a TAM which could not proceed because of a few hurdles. So in that period of 2006 and 7, we worked on TAM and actually got it started off. It has been a subject of controversy since, but at least something is there. Now it is our job to collectively work to improve it, bring it to accuracies.
So Asif, hurdles for you. After listening, I'm sure you realize that some of them are still
some of those are still very real. So funding is still a challenge, and this has been an unprecedented year for us with COVID, so we've seen advertisers hit a little bit. So the finances have been a constant challenge. The TAM issue is still there, but we have managed to evolve, and we became affiliated with EFI, which gave our marketers an international platform against which they could benchmark and assess their own performance. You could be self-critical, whilst you might be doing very well here. How do you really play out on the international front? So that has been an enormous step forward for us. One of the other challenges that we have now, there's a whole new digital economy that's now being established that is actually excluded from this environment. So I'm talking about the new apps, I'm talking about the new services that are arriving, who don't necessarily do traditional TV-based advertising. How do I bring them into the fold for us to stay relevant for them? I understand going forward, if I forecast now, maybe a decade onwards, some of those companies might be more powerful advertisers than even we are today. So from Lipton, Mobilink took over, from Mobilink somebody else could take over. So how do we future-proof ourselves? So actually this is a critical juncture that we find ourselves. So we work quite a lot with the regulators. We were having a conversation earlier about thinking about how do we increase our representation in certain government circles, because actually we have to educate them as well. We've got to bring them with us. We need them. We need to help them so they can help us.
Yeah, true. You can say that 5 times more.
Yeah, true. And it's one of the most difficult things.
Yeah. But regarding the training, you're right. So we were doing a lot of education work to bring up the younger generation of marketers, so that actually they get.
And also the advertising agencies.
Yes.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. Okay, so any final thoughts? Final message? Anything you would like to say?
So
all of you.
The big thing I would, clearly like to learn, because I have legends and observers here. I'm quite keen for you to give me feedback and direction. I have ideas of what we need to do, but I welcome your concluding thoughts.
At a point of time, whenever that happens, there is going to be some kind of a regulatory body who's going to start governing the principles and the execution of advertising. Before that happens, if PAS becomes that regulatory body, there are some basic principles which all advertisers have to follow, whether it be the duration of the ad, whether it be the level of competitiveness, can you take another brand's name or not, the level of claims. Before it starts going to court or the government steps in, it would be better if PAS comes forward and shows itself as a responsible authority who is managing all this.
Truth in advertising, clutter, measurement of the ROI, and talk about in the broader sense. And lastly, the country needs you. You are the best marketing brains in the country. And in more than one way, you could actually help the government. So become more relevant to the government so that they come and seek your advice.
Okay, so with this high note, thank you everyone. And here's to next 25 years perhaps to PAS and the society and everyone. Thank you everyone.